Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of ForceForward, where we talk about what business looks like tomorrow. I'm so thrilled to be joined with Lisa Hurwitz. She is a true transformational brand builder and multi-channel marketing leader with more than 20 years of experience on the client side and agency side. She's currently the Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer at Grassroots Cannabis. Tell us more, Lisa, about your role at Grassroots Cannabis. And for those of us who don't know much about it, tell us about Grassroots.
Sure. Well, thank you, Rebecca. I really appreciate the opportunity. And thanks to everyone out there. I know this has been a really crazy time, and I'm thrilled to talk about all the changes we're seeing in the cannabis industry. But to give you a little background, my background is in consumer packaged goods. And the great thing about kind of cannabis is it is both a CPG industry as well as a retail industry. And Grassroots, we're vertically integrated, which means we have both dispensaries. So we sell the products out of our dispensaries in many states. And we also have cultivation centers. So we also grow our own cannabis and package it, and we have our own brands, which is really exciting. So Grassroots operates in over 11 states right now, and we operate with the dispensary brand Herbology, and our product brand is Grassroots. And we kind of grow, process, and sell multiple different types of products, everything from edibles to flour to tinctures and vapes, and basically many of the products that you see on the market.
Tell us more about what it's like marketing for cannabis. You have so much experience marketing for different sectors in the consumer brand universe. So tell us about that.
I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges has been, scale, right? I mean, in cannabis, it really is different in every single state, right? The states kind of operate differently. The legislation is different, and that includes marketing legislation. So what we're able to do in one state, for example, simple things like have a pot leaf on our packaging, we're not allowed to do in other states. In some states, cannabis is referred to as marijuana or medical marijuana, and that's the only terminology we're allowed to use in any of our marketing materials. In other states, there are no restrictions. So I think the biggest challenge and difference with traditional CPG is it is not the same product in every market, and gaining scale and gaining consistency of the experience, the product experience, the grow is definitely a bigger challenge, because cannabis has to be grown in the state in which it's sold. And currently we have cultivation operations in 5 different states. And so what we're able to produce in that state varies a bit differently. And so creating consistency around brand is both a really big opportunity, but also a much bigger challenge than traditional CPG, where you manufacture a product and that product is incredibly consistent, and you have, centralized fulfillment warehouses and centers, and you ship all across the country. That's incredibly different than the cannabis industry, where you cannot ship across state lines. And as I mentioned, what's grown in the state has to be sold in the state.
So cannabis, it's a new industry, and it already is so challenging to even start building brands in this space. So now couple that with COVID-19 and those challenges. I know you had mentioned before that Grassroots is fortunate to have a really good data and digital infrastructure to really allow the business model to pivot. But I'm curious what the marketing strategies look like. How have you changed the marketing strategy during this crisis?
Becca, it's a great question. And, I was just speaking with my team yesterday, and I said, guys, listen, it's amazing. It's almost as if we went from running an in-person retail business to running an e-com business overnight. I mean, within 4 to 6 weeks. That's how dramatically our business changed. So we went from about 80% of the transactions in our retail stores, for example, happening in person. Someone would walk into a dispensary, they want to have a conversation, with one of our herbologists, understand what's on the menu, have that kind of high touch experience in our stores. COVID has changed all of that. We have moved, it's almost flipped, it's the inverse. We've moved on the medical side, almost 80% of our business to online ordering, curbside pickup, and things like cashless payment have become huge because people are much more reluctant to be passing cash. So when and where we can implement cashless payment systems, we have done that with great success. So it's really, the marketing has changed from thinking about what is that in-store experience? What are those materials? How do we do things like merchandising Grassroots products in the store? Bud tender education, all of that, to how do we make this a self-service model that people can go on our website, they can look at our menu, they can understand what the products are, add them to their basket. And the only thing they have to do in person is actually pick up the product. They still do need to go to the dispensary to pick up the product. In some places we do have delivery, but that high touch kind of consultative experience that they were used to has changed. So the marketing has taken a very different form. It's really become less about this high touch in-person events and education and much more around one-to-one communication using CRM, for example, has become arguably the most valuable channel we have. And we invested well ahead of the curve in, a data infrastructure and analytics to be able to understand what our customers are buying, understand how regularly they're buying, kind of what their needs are. And we're able to customize messaging both through email and through SMS to all of the customers that we have in our databases right now to let them know, hey, we've got flour in stock, or your favorite product is back, or, things that used to happen in the dispensary, like bud tenders recommending products, we now have moved to more of a digital platform, bud tender picks, for example, or what are our best sellers. So it's almost as if it's become like the Amazonification of the cannabis business, right? Very, very rapidly. And the marketing has shifted along with it.
Speaking of consumer behavior, you've mentioned you've seen not only an increase in new to category consumers, but an increase in consumption among consumers. Do you think this might be a reflection of the shift in marketing strategies, a little bit more of the atmosphere around COVID-19 and the stressful situation, a little bit of both? What do you see there?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you naturally see when these kinds of situations happen, industries like alcohol or now both medical and recreational cannabis becoming more and more important. But the marketing has absolutely played a pretty big role in it, in that, we're able to message people multiple times a week to let them know, most of the states we operate in, we're in short supply and high demand, and that hasn't changed. I'd say, the other thing, my team operates our customer service function, and we have had an influx of requests around, how can I find a cannabis product that is odorless and smokeless and won't get me so high that I can't function, but I need to take the edge off when I'm home. I'm homeschooling my kids. I'm trying to work full time. I'm very anxious. I'm very agitated. And, we often point them to things like edibles or tinctures, depending on what's available in their state. But I do think people are seeking a source of relief. The other big area that has exploded, of course, is sleep. People are having a much harder time sleeping. And rather than turning, to pharmaceuticals, cannabis provides a great, safer, more plant-based alternative to those types of sleep aids. So I think, cannabis being an essential business now has further legitimized the industry. And we're seeing a lot of new consumers come in and ask these questions, particularly around anxiety and sleep.
And how do you think today's climate will affect the future of consumption? What does that look like?
We're going to continue to see kind of consumption go up and be able to expand the people we reach. Again, we've seen time and time again, as states legalize, first for a medical program and then for recreational, it creates a sense of legitimacy, right? So when and where there was a stigma in cannabis, the fact that the government is now deeming cannabis essential businesses has reduced those barriers to entry for a lot of new people. And I think we're going to continue to see that, as COVID continues and as legalization kind of picks up steam and more states come on board, we're going to continue to see more people enter the category, and it's going to keep growing.
I definitely think having cannabis be named essential during this time is probably one of the more positive narratives we've seen out of this whole COVID-19 crisis. What other learnings or lessons do you think we'll take away from COVID-19 in terms of cannabis?
It's a great question. I mean, I think we're going to see things like consumer behavior shift in ways in which other categories, have shifted over time. So the questions, I wish I had a crystal ball and could say, what do we think people are going to keep and what do we think is going to change? I do think this online behavior is going to be something that's going to stick with us for a very long time. I don't think we're going to go back to 80% of our business being high touch and in person. I think we're going to train people to seek online resources, that one-to-one communication through digital channels. You're going to see more and more innovation around digital in the same way that e-commerce sites have popped up. You're going to see a blending of content and commerce in the cannabis space, which has largely been absent, right? You see terrific educational content sites around cannabis, but they mostly only sell CBD. Now, with the ability to actually order online and either pick up curbside or have it delivered, you're going to start to see that blending of content and commerce far more. So, we're really looking at the business and starting to think about it, again, especially from a marketing perspective, as a direct to consumer, almost commerce business, more so than sort of a traditional retailer, which I think the dispensaries have been for a long time. And I think a lot of that consumer behavior is going to continue to stick.
I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people who probably traditionally weren't buying things direct to consumer or online are probably going to be continuing in that behavior for quite some time, especially after COVID-19. Once you get used to how easy it is to shop online, it's hard to go back. And in spite of all the craziness going around, I do want to end on a real positive note. It is an exciting industry. It's a very dynamic industry. Tell me what excites you most about being in it right now, and what excites you most about the future?
One thing I love about cannabis is there's no roadmap, right? So I came from traditional CPG where everything is based on benchmarks, and then there's, 100 years of history, everything from how do you revamp your packaging to, all your marketing, and how do TV spots perform, and how does your digital advertising, there's benchmarks for all of it in traditional CPG. In cannabis, to begin with, without even COVID, there are no benchmarks. And this category, because of the decentralization and the state-by-state regulations, doesn't perform, as I mentioned earlier, like other CPG categories. But now more than ever, what gets me excited is the ability to pilot, right? I mean, we have half a dozen pilots running right now, everything from testing different messages in CRM and SMS to digital media, what's going to perform, how is it going to perform. We're able to run pilots kind of all over the place with different mediums. And again, there are no real benchmarks other than our own data with which to measure ourselves. So it gives you an enormous amount of flexibility and freedom. I also think, I used to get frustrated in traditional CPG that innovation moved too slow. And we've talked a lot about marketing, but the other part of my job is how a lot of the data and insights we're getting in are influencing product innovation, for example. And we are able to look at and say, I'll give you a great example, the rise of edibles, in part because COVID's accelerated that a little bit, because people are looking for smokeless ways, to find relief now a bit more. Although we've seen kind of flower and vape hold up really well throughout COVID, we are seeing edibles rise pretty significantly. And looking at what people are buying, what they're interested in, being able to sort of get that data and that dynamic feedback immediately into our product pipeline and turn around a product in 6-8 weeks is unheard of in the CPG industry. So the speed to which we can drive both marketing innovation and product innovation in this category is really unparalleled, and I think it makes it incredibly exciting for marketers or CPG folks like me.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for your time. We still look forward to following the success of Grassroots, and we look forward to keeping in touch.
Great, Rebecca. I appreciate being here. Stay safe and healthy.